Okay, so I've been single every Valentine's Day. I used to feel awful about that, but what I saw at work last year makes me feel like maybe being a single Pringle isn't half bad. I've worked as a barista since my senior year of high school. It sucks, but I like the people I work with. The customers, on the other hand, well, I'll just let this story speak for itself. People are crazy. Last Valentine's Day, a guy came in alone. He was shifty, bouncing from one foot to the other as he waited in line. We'd had this special frappe at my location. I think it was called Cupid's Dough, and people were going crazy for it. In all reality, it was just a regular cookie dough frappe with a couple of pumps of strawberry syrup. But people love limited time drinks. Anyway, this guy was getting impatient. He was not enjoying the line, and I could hear him grunting and groaning even above the din of the coffee shop. When he finally reached the counter, he slammed his hands down and said, "You better make my drink fast." We were slammed. Not only was the store full, but the drive-through line was backed up to the main road. That meant there were at least 20 people in line, probably more. I wanted to tell him a few more colorful words, but I smiled and said, "Of course, sir. What will you have today?" He ordered 2 Cupid's Dough drinks. He threw his card down, apparently too good to put it in my hand. "What name will that be under?" I asked as I rang him up. "Marcus," he told me, "but don't write that crap on the cup." Feeling my eye twitch, I smiled, as best as possible, and said, "Okay, what would you like us to write then? That way your order isn't confused with someone else's." He seemed to think about it, scratching at his neck beard. Eventually, he asked me to write on his cup, "Will you marry me?" At first I thought he was trying to come up with something stupid to make us yell, but then a girl walked in. "Oh, hi, Marcus," she smiled. "You got here early. Have you already ordered?" "Yeah," he told her. "I got you something too." "You didn't have to do that, but thanks." They moved to a booth as I continued taking orders. I'd almost forgotten about him until my coworker yelled, "2 drinks for Will You Marry Me?" Instead of getting up to grab his drinks, the man knelt on one knee. But she said nothing. The whole coffee shop was staring in their direction. "Marcus," she said in a low voice that still carried, "you know we aren't together, right?" "I think we should be. Marry me, Liza." The girl nervously laughed. "Can't we talk about this later?" If I had known what the man was about to do, I would have tried to stop him. He picked up a drink from the neighboring table, a black coffee, hot. It had just come out, and I could see the steam coming off of it. Before anyone could react, he slung it onto the girl. It luckily missed her face, but she cried and clutched her torso, where most of the scalding liquid hit. It was terrifying watching her writhe in pain. Another customer tackled her assailant, but no one could quell the girl's cries. One person screamed to get her ice, and as I desperately wanted to do something other than stand idle, I ran. An elderly woman in scrubs unbuttoned the girl's shirt. She was burned, badly. Her chest was marred with forming blisters, blossoming in disgusting hues of pink. The ambulance ended up taking her soon after. This year, I refused to work Valentines, and I may continue to do that for the foreseeable future. People are really scary sometimes. I hate Valentine's Day, not because of the lovey-dovey couples or the bad decorations, but because it's the day my sister died. She was hiking with her boyfriend at the time. He was a nasty dude that didn't deserve her, but she was head over heels for him. They were in an area known for its natural cliff faces. My sister knew it well. Still, on February 14th, 2018, she fell to her death. An accident. That's what the police called it. She just slipped and fell. But I know it's not the truth. There's no way she could have been that careless. In addition, she'd been arguing with her boyfriend. She wouldn't admit it, but I'm sure he'd hurt her. She had this bruise on her cheekbone and another on her arm. I accepted her lame excuses, but I knew there was no way she had fallen down the stairs, just like I know she didn't fall off a cliff. I wish I had done something before it was too late. I wish I could have helped her, but now my little sister is gone. Her murderer walks free. That just doesn't seem fair to me. He's even got a new girlfriend now. I can tell she keeps the bruises hidden under the makeup too. Big brothers are supposed to protect their little sisters. I failed. But maybe there's something I can do to at least avenge her. I saw he posted pictures of camping gear on Instagram. I wonder if it's the same equipment he bought with my sister. I have an idea of where he's taking his girlfriend for Valentines. And if he shows up, well, I'll make sure the walkway is extra slippery for him. I had one heck of a Valentine's evening in 2015. I'll out myself. I was a player before I met my wife and had 2 girlfriends. I wasn't serious about either of them, but my buddy was throwing a Valentine's party, and I figured I'd bring one of them. Anyway, I messed up somehow. I thought I'd invited Stephanie, the prettier of the 2, but I'd invited Susie instead. She was a little bit crazy, something that a younger me was pretty into. Well, I was until that night. So I just rolled with it when Susie showed up. The first few hours of the party were great. We danced, we drank, and Susie entertained my buddies with her lack of self-control and lewd jokes. Then something pissed her off. I don't even know what it was. Maybe I wasn't giving her attention? Maybe she wanted the sky to change colors? Who knows with that girl? The result was a bunch of shrieking and a little bit of clawing. Susie ended up storming out. She was expecting me to follow, but I just didn't have the energy. I went back to my buddies and had a drink. Everyone was with somebody. I was the only one alone, and that started to bother me. I dialed up Stephanie. She was excited, saying she was unsure if I was going to invite her out or not. Stephanie told me she'd be over in 10. Though I was still reeling from Susie, I was glad my night was finally going the way I wanted. 10 minutes passed, and I texted Steph. "Hey, where are you?" No answer. I waited a little longer before texting again. "You all good?" Again, no reply. This was very unlike Stephanie. I looked around at all of the couples. Their laughter hurt my head. Why does it suck more to be alone in front of people who are together? I went outside and lit up a cigarette. After a few moments of silence, I called Stephanie up. She answered on the very first ring. "Sorry, I saw you texted. I've got a flat. I don't suppose you could come help me." I didn't feel sober enough to drive far, but I said, "Sure, where are you?" "The Chevron, near my place." And with that, I was on my way. I hopped into my car and started driving toward the gas station. It wasn't even 10 minutes away. I felt confident I could make it that far, even if I was still a little drunk. I was at the light before the turn when I heard a rustling in the back seat. "Huh?" Susie said. "Oh, you finally came to apologize. I fell asleep waiting for your stubborn butt. Unless you want to spend Valentine's night alone, I'd suggest being nicer." I nearly shot out of my seat when I first heard her. My gut plunged when my phone rang. "Stephanie is calling." "Isn't that your sister?" Susie smiled, squeezing my shoulder a bit too hard. "You should answer. Maybe some jerk is breaking her heart on Valentine's." I stalled at the light. It had turned green, but I was just sitting. If other cars had been on the road, they would have been honking like crazy. But the area was empty. Too empty. "Go on," Susie said, tightening her grip. "Answer." "Hey," Stephanie said as I answered. "Are you almost here? Someone offered to help, but I'd rather wait for you." I could feel the sweat dripping down my neck. Susie was sitting close enough to hear. I'll be there in a second. I hung up. My sister has a flat. She's timid, so don't talk to her, okay? She's having a bad day. Susie narrowed her eyes, but then she just tilted her head and smiled. Of course. I'm sure you were planning to introduce us eventually, right? I forced myself to nod. When we got to the gas station, it was empty. Stephanie was standing with her arms crossed in front of the car. Hey, she called. The flat is on this side, at the back. She didn't seem to notice Susie sitting in the back, and I wanted to keep it that way. I quickly threw the car in park and hopped out. Okay, let me check the damage. I'll bet it... I looked at the tire, kneeling. You said it was the back wheel, right? It doesn't seem to be flat. I turned to question Stephanie, but all I saw was Susie. She was inches away from my face, with a big smile. So this is your sister, huh? I heard a sniffle. Stephanie. She was crying. How could you? Yeah, how could you? Susie echoed. You tried to light our hearts on fire. I think it's only fair if we do the same to you. Before I could respond, something was shoved in my mouth. I didn't recognize the taste, but I knew the smell. It was the gas nozzle. Liquid flooded my mouth, and I came away coughing. I tried to stand up, but I couldn't. All I could do was choke. I heard the distant thud of footsteps and looked up to see Susie handing Stephanie a match. You do the honors, she said, tapping her shoulder. Burn him up. Stephanie looked at me and then at the match. Tears were in her eyes, but in that sea of hurt, I could see all of her hate. I was sure she would light it, but then she just turned away. She trailed off. Can we just go? Susie flicked open the matchbook, smiling down at me as she toyed with it. You sure? Stephanie nodded. Well, Susie said, I guess you got lucky today. Don't play with a woman's heart. Ever since that day, I've lived by those rules. I still have nightmares, tinged with the smell of gasoline.